Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into global aging. We're looking at a report from the Lausanne Movement.
Yeah, it's really targeted toward Christian leaders, talking about challenges and opportunities. It has some startling facts in it.
Okay, like what?
Like by 2050, there will be more people over 65 than under 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it seems like a really big shift coming, but it sounds like the report isn't all doom and gloom, right?
No, not at all. There are a lot of opportunities in it.
So what's the overall message they're trying to get across?
They're trying to say that global aging is real, and the church needs to prepare for it.
Okay.
The UN actually describes population aging as unprecedented, pervasive, profound, and enduring.
Those are some big words to describe this trend. So, okay, so we've talked about some of the challenges, but you said there were some opportunities too.
Yeah, there are. A key one is spiritual growth among older adults. Research actually shows that as we age, we tend to become more interested in spiritual things.
That's interesting. So it's not just about caring for their physical needs, but also recognizing that they have spiritual needs.
Exactly. And the report pushes us to think about this more intentionally, like to think beyond youth ministry.
To see them as people who are still growing and still seeking God, even in their later years.
Yeah, and they have so much to offer. The report even talks about a 70-100 window, similar to the 414 window.
Okay.
That's a time of great spiritual potential.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. What else?
Another big opportunity is grandparents becoming spiritual leaders.
Oh, that's great.
With more grandparents than ever, they can mentor younger generations. They have a lot of wisdom and experience to share.
Yeah, I love that. It's about building those intergenerational relationships, right?
Exactly. And the report really emphasizes that, connecting with older people and letting them share their stories can be really powerful.
It's about community and realizing that we can all learn from each other no matter how old we are.
Exactly. And that's just the beginning. The report talks about volunteering and advocacy and even entrepreneurship. It's a pretty exciting vision.
It's about seeing aging as a time of continued contribution, not just decline. And there are resources for people who want to learn more.
Yeah, the UN has the Principles for Older Persons and the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging.
Okay. We'll be sure to put those in the show notes for anyone who wants to dig deeper. So this report is really making us rethink our assumptions about aging, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so much potential here.
What stands out to you the most?
I think it's how the report frames global aging as like a call to action for the church. It's not just about adapting, but leading the way in creating a more just and compassionate society for all ages.
I like that. It's about recognizing the dignity and worth of every person, no matter how old they are.
Yeah,
And it's about embracing the richness and diversity that comes with an aging population.
absolutely. And the possibilities for spiritual growth and connection.
What really stood out to me was how the report focused on like the spiritual side of aging.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. They challenge this idea that, older people are somehow done with spiritual growth.
Right.
They actually argue that those later years could be the most profound time for spiritual exploration.
Huh. That makes me wonder, I mean, do you think our priorities naturally shift as we age? Do we become more spiritual as we get closer to the end of life? Or is that just, a stereotype?
Well, the report does highlight research that shows as people age, they often grapple more with those big questions like meaning and purpose.
Yeah,
They've lived through more, the good and the bad, so they naturally start reflecting on the bigger picture.
that makes sense. Those big existential questions probably feel more urgent when you're looking back on a whole lifetime.
Exactly. And that growing spiritual interest, it's a huge opportunity for the church.
Okay, so how can churches actually tap into that openness? What kinds of ministries would be effective in reaching older adults?
Well, the report is pretty clear that it's not enough to just have like a seniors group off to the side.
Right, right.
They really push for integrating older adults into every part of church life.
To make them feel like valued members of the community.
Exactly. Recognizing their gifts and talents, letting them contribute their wisdom and experience.
Yeah, I could see that being so empowering. Instead of just being cared for, they're actively participating. Are there churches doing this well already? Like, what does that look like in practice?
Oh, yeah, the report highlights some great examples. Some churches are doing these mentorship programs pairing older and younger people,
Oh, wow.
so they can share their stories and faith journeys. Others are doing Bible studies that are specifically designed for the questions and concerns of older adults.
I like that. It's about meeting them where they are. We even talked about having senior pastors alongside youth pastors.
Yeah, it's a pretty radical idea, but some churches are actually trying it out. Having someone dedicated to this ministry can make a big
It
difference.
sends a message that you value older people, that their spiritual well-being matters.
Exactly. And some churches are being really creative with outreach too, offering transportation, organizing social outings, even tech training.
Tech training.
Yeah, to help older people stay connected.
It's about breaking down barriers. And it doesn't have to be complicated, right?
Not at all. Sometimes it's the simple things that make the biggest difference. A phone call, a visit, a friendly face.
Just letting them know they're not forgotten, that they're part of something. Especially with that loneliness issue we talked about. The church can be a lifeline.
It really can, and this might seem obvious, but the report really stresses intergenerational relationships.
Oh yeah, we touched on that earlier.
They encourage churches to create more opportunities for older and younger people to actually interact and learn from each other.
I love that. I mean, there's so much we can learn from the experience of older people, and they can learn from us too.
It's a win-win, and it goes beyond just having programs. It's about building that culture of connection where everyone feels comfortable.
Like a true community that reflects the body of Christ with all its diversity.
Exactly. We all have something unique to offer, no matter our age.
It reminds me of that biblical model of mentorship. Like Moses and Joshua, Paul and Timothy.
Oh, yeah. Passing on the faith to the next generation, that's always been important.
And it's so relevant now in our aging world. We need those connections to bridge the gaps, pass on that wisdom and faith.
I couldn't agree more. It's like creating a living legacy.
And the church can play a big part in changing the way we think about aging too. Instead of seeing it as a decline, it can be a time of growth, contribution.
Absolutely. We can help older people live those years to the fullest, embracing the opportunities, navigating the challenges.
It makes me think of that 70-100 widow again. The spiritual journey doesn't end just because you're older, or even if your health declines.
It goes on. Those final years can be a time of deep spiritual growth, real closeness with God.
But how can we do that? I mean, how can we be better equipped to minister to older people, especially those facing the challenges of aging and even end-of-life care?
The report tackles that head on. It calls for more training for pastors and church leaders, how to provide spiritual care to older adults.
To go beyond the practical stuff and really address their spiritual needs and questions.
Exactly. To be present with those who are suffering, offer comfort, help them navigate those tough conversations about death and what comes after.
And support for caregivers, too. They're often carrying a heavy load.
Right. The report stresses that churches need to provide resources for caregivers, whether it's respite care, support groups, or even just someone to talk to.
To recognize that caring for those who are caring is a ministry in itself.
Absolutely. A real expression of Christian love.
This conversation has been really eye-opening. It's clear that ministry to older adults is about so much more than just meeting physical needs. It's about nurturing their spiritual lives, building community, empowering them, walking alongside them.
It's about seeing them as valuable members of the body of Christ, not a burden, not a problem.
It's about recognizing the richness and diversity that they bring, and all the possibilities for growth and connection and spiritual vitality.
And approaching it all with a sense of hope and excitement, knowing God is working through us to bring his love to people of all ages.
This has been so inspiring. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of what it means to really minister to older adults.
We have. We've talked about their spiritual needs, those intergenerational relationships, the role of the church in caregiving, the unique challenges and opportunities.
And in our next part, we're going to shift gears a bit and look at the more practical considerations for churches as they adapt to, a rapidly aging world.
Yeah, we'll be looking at the logistical challenges, some of the creative solutions churches are using to make their ministries more age-friendly and welcoming to everyone. The report points out that, honestly, many churches are still pretty focused on younger people.
Yeah.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do you make sure older adults feel seen and heard?
It seems like a real opportunity for the church, to be a leader in creating these more inclusive communities. But where do we even start?
Well, the report gives some good advice. One of the big things is it's not enough to just have a separate seniors group.
Right.
It's about making older adults a part of everything.
So like a real culture of inclusion, not just a box to tick.
Exactly. It's about seeing what they bring to the table, their wisdom, their experience, giving them opportunities to use their gifts.
I could see that being so powerful. Imagine like an older adult leading a Bible study or mentoring younger people or even sharing their testimony during a service.
Those are great examples. And that's the whole point of this report. It's about recognizing all the good that can come from this, helping older people live with purpose and meaning.
So it's not just about taking care of them, it's about unleashing their potential.
Exactly. That's so much to give, so much wisdom to share.
It's a whole new way of thinking about aging, isn't it? Not decline, but growth, contribution.
Well said. And that's what I hope we can all take away from this. Global aging is happening and it's going to change everything. But we don't have to be afraid of it. We can use it to build stronger communities, learn from each other, grow in our faith, make a difference in the world.
It's about valuing every generation, round and old, and working together to create a world that's not just age-friendly, but age-celebratory.
I love that. A world where aging isn't something to dread, but a journey of growth, right up to the very end.
This has been such an amazing conversation. It's given me so much to think about. Global aging, the opportunities for the church, it's been eye-opening.
Me too. It's been a real pleasure talking about this with you, and I hope everyone listening feels ready to engage with this in their own communities.
I hope so too. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.